IVM. Hey guys, welcome to the Positively Unlimited podcast. And in today's episode, I'm talking about empty words. Well, in my last retreat, I remember we were doing this one exercise that I do, which I call Who Am I Choosing to Be? It's this 4-question workshop that I usually do. And I remember one of the participants writing down a statement that said, I am choosing to be the most compassionate person in the world. And I looked at her and said, why? Why do you want to be the most compassionate person in the world? And, she said, because isn't that what we all should be? And I looked at her and said, no. If you become the most compassionate person in the world, and live this idealistic life, you might become unrelatable. You might become unapproachable. We are meant to have certain dark sides. We are meant to have the good and the bad. We are meant to be compassionate, but we are also meant to be angry and feel certain emotions. So it was at that time that I realized that we tend to use certain words, they're jargon, and we're throwing it out there and we're role-playing into it. But there's no action or substance to back it. And then that's leading to internal conflict. So I used to work in advertising. Literally, advertising and publishing is where my career began. And in advertising, marketing, there's a lot of jargon that's used. And I used to find presentations and going for client meetings very amusing because what someone can, instead of saying something like, we can't afford you, there'll be this long 4-line explanation about why we are being rejected, for example. Or if the client wants the logo to be made larger, there'll be this long explanation sometimes, depending on who the client is, right? Yes, those who are listening to this and are from advertising know that sometimes the client just calls and says, logo bada kar do. But jargon, right? So I learned all about jargon in my previous career. And I see the same kind of things happening all over again. So let me throw some words out there and just think about what comes to your mind. Compassion, empath, self-love, love yourself. All of these words sound very nice. But how does one get to it? How does one imbibe this? How does one become this and live this? Now, I gave you an example of compassion. What's the point if we have so much compassion for everyone else but none for ourselves? Think about that. One place where I've seen this, and I've seen this a lot, is with people who are animal activists. And I understand that, animals cannot communicate. And by all means, we must be on their side a little bit more than we are on the human side. Completely with them. However, there are many exceptions to the rule where I have met animal activists who will treat animals and pets with so much love, compassion, and kindness. But when it comes to humans, all they have is hatred. Now, how does that work? Well, in a way, I can say that's duality. That also exists. But then what can I learn from there? So if you want to be a compassionate person, if you want to have compassion, you want to experience compassion, then you need to do it with everyone in every situation in your life. Now, whether that's the office boy, whether that's your maid, whether that's your mom, whether that's your dad, whether that's your friend, whether that's your own self, you cannot be compassionate or you cannot chase the emotion of compassion in selective ways. Let me give you another example, another word, which is empath. Now, in the alternative healing world, this is like a favorite word. Everyone wants to be labeled an empath. It's as if there's some kind of pride that we take in saying, oh, I'm an empath. I feel so much energy. I get affected so easily. Well, honestly, if you ask me, an empath is somebody who has not learned to place the boundaries. You can have empathy. We're all supposed to have empathy, but there is no need for anybody to be an empath. And, well, my personal opinion is nobody is born an empath. And even if they are, they can learn to place boundaries. So, drawing boundaries can be a skill that can be learned to cope with high levels of empathy. Some people are oversensitive, yes. Some people get pulled into other people's drama very easily, yes. But it is all a case of not being able to draw the right boundaries. Now, drawing boundaries is not something we are born with. It's a skill that has to be learned. I've spoken more about drawing boundaries in episode 69, so go listen to it. There are tools in that in how you can learn this one very important habit and skill. And I promise you it will change the way you live your relationships. It'll change your equations. Maybe a little rocky in the beginning, but eventually it works out for the best every single time. So that's about empathy, right? If you are being overly empathetic, then ask yourself why. A lot of times, all of us are taking these labels and holding on to them and feeling a sense of pride in calling ourselves these particular words simply because it is allowing us to fit in. It is allowing us to experience some kind of attention, significance, love, connection. So ask yourself, why do you need to be an empath? What does it do for you? And if it is not helping you, then how can you change it? I'll give you another phrase that is used, and in fact, I've done an episode on it as well, which is love yourself. You know, the moment somebody is hurting, the moment somebody is being walked all over in certain relationships, the moment somebody is apparently not prioritizing themselves, near and dear ones will turn around and say, oh, you need to learn to love yourself. Very easy to say, but how do I do it, right? Also, we need to understand one thing. There are very few of us, or rather, there are a bunch of us who may not like our own selves entirely. But majority of us, and again, this is a part of duality, we will like some things about ourselves and we will dislike something about ourselves. It's how it's supposed to be, because then what we dislike is what we need to work on. That's your space of evolution. So even when you are talking about self-love, even if you are talking about loving yourself, think about how you are analyzing this. It's not a blanket rule. It's not like you don't love yourself at all. You will realize that at different points in your life, you have made choices, decisions, stood up for yourself, and done things which prove that you did love yourself in that moment. So self-love and love yourself, yes, it's something that a lot of us need to learn, but it's not a label that we need to paste on ourselves and walk around. It's not a badge that we need to wear, right? All of these words like empath, compassion, self-love, love yourself, don't judge, I'm a negative thinker, I overthink, all of these pieces, they're all part and parcel of life, and we can work around them. I'm doing an episode right after this one about the labels that we take on, so do listen to that one. But for now, think about the empty words that you are uttering and think about how you can back them up with the right and appropriate action. I will be doing one more episode on empty words soon, but from a completely different angle. For now, you don't have to be compassionate 100% of the time. You don't have to be that every waking minute of your day. You have to experience compassion whenever, wherever possible. Yes, the world out there is hard. There's a lot of bad stuff happening. You see people struggling. You possibly are struggling too. And compassion is a great emotion that helps us flow through this. It allows us to give kindness and experience kindness. It allows us to feel a sense of comfort and feel loved. So be compassionate, but don't hold yourself to it in such a manner that you start judging yourself and pull yourself down. Don't do it in such a manner that you start rejecting your other emotions. If you experience high levels of empathy, Stop calling yourself an empath first. You don't have to walk around with that badge and label. Yes, you may experience high levels of empathy. You may be oversensitive. Let's work around it. What you need to do is learn to draw boundaries. Episode number 69, remember. If you are struggling to love yourself, what you are struggling with is how to prioritize your needs, your wants, how to choose yourself without feeling guilt or without allowing someone to feel like you've let them down. So work around that. There are ways in which you can work around all of this. There is an episode on self-loathing, which is episode number 71. And there is an episode, which is episode number 39, on how you can learn to love yourself. Listen to these episodes, and I'm sure you will understand what I mean by these empty words. So until next week, make sure that everything you say is backed by action.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep, or lose weight, or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.
India's a massive subcontinent home to truly stunning diversity. Behind the veils of smoke that obscure our thriving cities, our history is still alive, glimmering like sequins, waiting to be discovered. And if you, like me, are straining to hear the echoes of our past, this podcast is for you. I'm Anirudh Kanisetti, a history and geopolitics researcher, and I host Echoes of India, a history podcast about India, by Indians, and for Indians. In Echoes, we journey through the complex histories of South Asia and what they can teach us about our globalized world. Tune in every Wednesday on ivmpodcast.com or your favorite podcast app.